The Things We Left Behind. Chapter 1. Daniel kept the phone pressed against his ear long after Claire stopped speaking. Around him, freezer doors opened and closed with soft bursts of cold air. A child somewhere near the bakery section was crying over something small and permanent in the way children cried about things. Two employees stood beside a pyramid of canned soup discussing weekend plans neither of them sounded excited about. The world continued at its usual speed. That felt strange to him. Daniel. Her voice was thinner than he remembered. Not weaker, just farther away somehow. He looked down at the carton in his hand. Whole milk. He had started buying it after she left because she used to complain that oat milk tasted like wet paper. 3 months later, he still reached for the wrong thing without thinking. "What kind of mistake?" he asked. Silence answered first. Then a breath. "I shouldn't have called." He almost laughed at that. Not because it was funny, but because it sounded exactly like Claire. Opening a door only to stand in the frame of it, undecided. "You already did." Another silence settled between them, softer this time. Familiar enough that he could almost picture her sitting somewhere with one knee pulled to her chest, staring out a window while she searched for words she would later insist she never meant to say aloud. He left the cart beside the frozen pizzas and walked toward the front of the store. The automatic doors opened with a tired mechanical sound. Outside, the parking lot shone dark from recent rain. Cars moved slowly through reflections of red brake lights and street lamps. "I saw your mother last week," Claire said. That surprised him more than the call itself. "My mother?" At the pharmacy near Maple Avenue. He leaned against the cold brick wall beside the entrance. "You talked to her?" "She saw me first. And she asked if I was sleeping." For the first time since answering the phone, Daniel closed his eyes. That sounded like his mother. No accusation. No curiosity disguised as politeness. Just one direct question placed carefully into another person's hands. "She always liked you," he said. "I know." Rainwater dripped steadily from the edge of the awning above him. Across the lot, a man struggled to fold an umbrella while his wife waited beside the car holding a paper bag against her coat. Daniel watched them longer than necessary. "How is she?" Claire asked quietly. "She's fine." "You hesitated." "She's 72, Claire." Everyone hesitates before saying someone in their 70s is fine. He heard her exhale softly through the phone. Not annoyance exactly, more like recognition. She had always known when he was hiding concern inside humor. "What's really going on?" he asked. A car passed nearby, tires whispering over wet pavement. Claire did not answer immediately. "I'm in Hartford," she said at last. Daniel straightened a little without meaning to. Hartford was less than 40 minutes away. He glanced instinctively toward the road beyond the parking lot as if he might somehow see her from there. "For work?" "No." The word landed carefully. Then another pause. "My father had surgery on Tuesday." Daniel felt something tighten in his chest. He had not thought about her father in months, maybe longer, but suddenly he could picture him perfectly. Quiet man, square shoulders, always smelling faintly of cedar and coffee grounds. The kind of person who never sat fully back in a chair. "What happened?" "It wasn't an emergency," she said quickly. "At least that's what everyone keeps saying. But when people repeat that enough times, it usually means they were scared." He nodded to himself. A gust of wind swept rain through the edge of the awning. Daniel stepped farther back toward the wall. "How is he now?" "He's home." "And you?" That question stayed between them. Not because it was intimate, because neither of them knew how to answer it honestly anymore. Inside the store, someone laughed loudly near the registers. A teenager pushed a row of shopping carts across the lot, metal clanging sharply against metal. Claire spoke before he could. "I drove past your apartment yesterday." Daniel frowned slightly. "Why?" "I don't know." "You don't accidentally drive 40 minutes out of your way." "I said I don't know." He rubbed a hand across his mouth. 11 months disappeared strangely fast inside certain conversations. 1 minute they were strangers preserving distance. The next minute they were standing inside old patterns neither of them had fully escaped. He remembered the last night she had been in his apartment. October, cold enough for the windows to fog near the corners. She had stood beside the bookshelf pulling on her coat while he said things too late to matter. Neither of them yelling. That was the problem. Their relationship had ended the same way a room slowly loses heat. Before leaving, she had unwound the blue scarf from her neck and placed it over the back of the chair near the door. Not forgotten. Left. At the time he understood that immediately, though he had pretended otherwise. Daniel. Yeah. I didn't call to confuse you. He looked out at the rain again. That may have been unavoidable. For a moment she sounded close to laughing. It disappeared almost instantly, but he heard it. And hearing it did something dangerous to him. Not hope exactly. Something older than hope. Memory, maybe. When's the last time you slept properly? She asked. There it is. What? You avoiding the real conversation. I'm serious. So am I. He heard movement on her end now. A door shutting. Footsteps maybe. Then silence again. Finally she said, very softly, I kept thinking about that night. Daniel did not ask which one. There was only one night now when they spoke to each other like this. One fixed point both of them circled without touching directly. He watched rain slide down the windshield of his car. What about it? He asked. I think I waited for you to stop me. The parking lot suddenly seemed very still. Daniel lowered his eyes toward the wet concrete beneath his shoes. You left anyway, he said after a while. Yes. Neither of them moved past it. Because there were too many things hidden inside those two words. Pride, fear, exhaustion. The stubborn belief that being misunderstood long enough eventually became the same thing as being unseen. A shopping cart rolled loose somewhere nearby until it struck a curb. Claire spoke again, quieter now. I don't know why I called tonight. Daniel looked through the glass doors into the bright artificial light of the grocery store. People buying bread, choosing cereal, living ordinary evenings untouched by ghosts they had carried for almost a year. I think you do, he said. This time she did not answer at all. Daniel did not buy the milk. By the time he went back inside, someone had moved his cart away from the frozen foods aisle. He walked slowly through the store searching for it, though he could not have said why it mattered. When he finally found it near Produce, a teenage employee was restocking avocados beside it, earbuds tucked beneath his hood. Sorry, man, the kid said without looking up. Thought somebody abandoned it. Daniel nodded once. Yeah. He stood there a moment longer with one hand on the cart handle. The groceries suddenly felt chosen by another person. Pasta, coffee, dish soap, bananas turning brown at the stems. Small evidence of a life continuing quietly whether he paid attention to it or not. He left half of it behind. Outside, the rain had weakened to a fine mist. The windshield wipers scraped across dry glass once before he turned them off. For several minutes he sat in the parking lot with the engine running, phone face down on the passenger seat. Claire had ended the call gently, not abruptly, not coldly. That somehow made it harder. He drove home through streets slick with reflected light. A laundromat glowed blue on the corner near Elm Street. Two college students crossed against the signal carrying pizza boxes above their heads like umbrellas. Everything looked temporary in the rain. At a red light, he caught himself thinking about Hartford. Not the city itself. A hotel room there. Claire sitting awake beside a lamp she forgot to turn off. Her father asleep in another part of town. Her phone in her hand before she finally decided to call him. The light changed. Someone behind him tapped their horn once. Daniel drove on. His apartment smelled faintly of dust and radiator heat when he walked in. He dropped his keys into the ceramic bowl near the door and stood in the darkness without taking off his coat. Nothing had changed in the room since Claire left. Not intentionally. Books still stacked beneath the window because she used to complain there was never enough shelf space. The record player she bought him for his 35th birthday. A chipped green mug near the sink he should have thrown away months ago. And the scarf, still hanging over the chair beside the bookshelf. Blue wool, slightly frayed near one end. Daniel stared at it for a long time. Then, almost against his own judgment, he crossed the apartment and picked it up. Still smelled faintly like cedar. Not perfume. Claire never wore perfume. Just shampoo, winter air, and that clean woodsy scent from the soap she always bought at the farmer's market near their old neighborhood. Memory moved strangely. Sometimes it arrived in clear images. Sometimes through the body first. His chest tightened before the thought fully formed. He sat down slowly on the edge of the couch, scarf gathered loosely in one hand. 11 months. People said that phrase like time itself accomplished something. As if days naturally carried grief away if you stayed still long enough. But Daniel had learned something quieter than that. Time did not remove certain feelings. It only taught you how to carry them without speaking. His phone buzzed suddenly against the kitchen counter. He looked up too quickly. Not Claire. His sister, Megan. He let it ring once more before answering. "Hey, you sound tired," she said immediately. Daniel leaned back against the couch cushions. "You always start conversations like you're collecting evidence." "Because with you, I usually am." He smiled despite himself. Megan was younger by 4 years and somehow permanently older in temperament. Since their father died, she had developed a way of speaking to him that blended affection with mild suspicion. "You eat dinner yet?" she asked. "Not really." "What does that mean?" "It means I bought groceries and then emotionally collapsed beside the avocados." A brief silence. Then she laughed once. "Okay, there he is." Daniel rubbed his eyes. "What's going on?" she asked more carefully now. He almost said nothing. Almost. Then, Claire called. Everything on the other end of the line went still. "When?" "About an hour ago." "And?" He looked down at the scarf in his hand. "I don't know." "That's not an answer." "It's the only one I have right now." Megan exhaled slowly. He could picture her standing in her kitchen, one hand pressed against her forehead the way she always did while thinking. What did she want? She said she made a mistake. Oh, not surprise. Recognition. Daniel noticed that immediately. "You knew she would call eventually," he said quietly. "I knew neither of you were finished talking." "We were finished." "No," Megan said. "You were separated." "That's different." Daniel stood and walked toward the window. Across the street, a man in a dark coat struggled to unlock his bicycle from a parking meter. "You make it sound simple. I think you two made it complicated on purpose." "That's generous." "It's true." He rested his forehead briefly against the cool glass. Megan continued more softly now. "You loved her for a long time before you admitted it." Daniel closed his eyes. "That doesn't mean anything." "It usually means everything." He did not answer. Somewhere above him, footsteps crossed the ceiling of the apartment upstairs. Pipes knocked softly inside the walls. Ordinary sounds. Safe sounds. Megan spoke again. "Did she say she wants to see you?" "No. But she's 40 minutes away." Another pause. Then his sister asked the question he had been avoiding since the call ended. "Do you want her to?" Daniel looked toward the chair beside the bookshelf. The scarf lay folded over the armrest now, exactly where he had placed it. For a moment he remembered Claire standing in this apartment on a February morning, barefoot, laughing because he had burned pancakes so badly the smoke detector went off. He remembered how she used to read the last page of novels first, how she touched his wrist lightly when passing behind him in the kitchen, how tired she looked near the end, though neither of them admitted noticing. Love rarely disappeared all at once. Usually it exhausted itself slowly, trying to survive things people never learned how to say aloud. "Daniel." He realized his sister was waiting. "I don't know what I want," he said finally. And this time, at least, it was true.